Good morning to all. I welcome you on the behalf of Society of Inflammation Research. Today, the virtual bi-monthly lecture series on immunology and inflammation. Today, we are talking on innate response of inflammation. Is the second day. Yesterday, we had a talk by 3 speakers. Today, we will be talking on macrophages, NK cells, and role of innate immune system in maintenance of inflammation and autoimmune response and drug targets, the way forward. The stalwarts on this in the different fields of immunology and inflammation will be giving the talks. I request Dr. Balasubramaniam and Dr. Renuka to chair the session, and we can start. Dr. Balasubramaniam, please.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So it's my pleasure to introduce the first speaker, Dr. Vani Janakiraman. And Vani is actually an assistant professor at Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. And I've been interacting with the Department of Biotechnology for the last 10 to 15 years, one way or other way. Every week I know actually, and Vani and me, we used to conduct DC meetings for the various PhD students kind of thing. So Vani got her PhD from INSEM. INSEM is actually similar, the medical component like ICMR in Paris. And her interest is in multidisciplinary engineering, tuberculosis, infection biology. And today, among all the white blood cells, macrophages are the macro players, and I can even call them as superstars in the field of information regulation. They are misused or wrongly exploited during the situation like COVID-19 kind of thing. So today one is going to actually talk on macrophage, a flare of inflammation. Over to Vani.
Thank you, Dr. Balasubramaniam, for the kind introduction, and thanks all the committee members for the invite. Glad that you were turning up on Sunday morning. I hope I'll make the talk informative, and your Sunday morning is worth spending on it.
So Vani, you can share the screen again.
Sorry?
You need to share the screen again.
Okay, fine. Is it visible now?
Yes, full screen.
Yeah.
Is that
Perfect?
Yeah, it's fine.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's fine.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Renuka. Yeah. So glad meeting many of you here. Have not met some of you earlier. Yeah. So nice meeting you all. Yeah. So today we would be briefly talking about macrophages, and right. So when we look at the cells of the immune system, unlike RBCs, which are just one type of cells, WBCs are quite diverse. Like there are huge varieties. There are multiple cell types, multiple cell subtypes, and so on. So this is just a glimpse of when we stain a drop of the blood, how does it look? You'll see the more uniform RBCs, but the WBCs you would see with very versatile staining characteristics. Yeah, so that itself already speaks for the diversity of the WBC population. And WBCs, just like any other cell types of the body, originate from the bone marrow, and most of the WBCs are kind of born through these two major lineages, which are lymphoid lineage and myeloid lineage. And today we are going to talk about this particular cell type that is born through the myeloid lineage. Okay, and yeah. Okay. So this particular cell types that we are going to talk about largely falls into this major classification of agranular leukocytes, and the granular leukocytes on the other side, which are very well known, basophils, neutrophils, and eosinophils, which are very rich in granules. And the agranular leukocytes basically include the lymphocytes and the monocytes. So monocytes are the parent cells of the macrophages that we are going to briefly discuss today. And if we quickly look at the proportion of the individual cell subtypes inside the WBC population. Neutrophils are the most numerous, and next comes the other granulocytes and the monocytes. Though the monocytes seem to be of 3 to 8% of the WBCs, but they are the parent cells of two very, very important cells of the immune system, which are macrophages and dendritic cells. So, right. So, with respect to the immune system, I'm sure the Conazyur audience, all of us know that immune system protects us with multiple layers and with increasing specificity, increasing with each layer, right? So, with respect to the innate immune responses, which is basically the inborn immune response, we have certain cells that are kind of participating in that, and we also have adaptive immune response, which is a lot more custom-made, tailor-made type of an immune response. And we also have another set of cells that participate into the adaptive immune responses, right? So the macrophages that we are going to kind of talk today about kind of fall into the largely falls into the innate immune response cells, but they also kind of fall into the intersection of the adaptive immune responses in eliciting adaptive immune responses, because they are also the cells that kind of communicate about the invader to the adaptive immune system, right? What we call it as antigen presenting cell, a professional antigen presenting cell. Okay, so that's how we have kind of put macrophages under both immune system, which is basically innate and adaptive immune system. Okay, and the kind of parent cells or the precursor cells of the macrophages were kind of discovered really long ago, and one of the very ancient cells, understandably, that's why they are kind of put under the that's why they kind of participate in the innate immune responses, which is evolutionarily conserved. And basically immunocytes, which are the macrophage-like functionality cells, were first observed in the larvae of starfish by the very eminent scientist Elie Meshnikov. And the macrophage-like cells have been kind of identified in multiple organisms across different kingdoms and different organisms in the evolutionary tree, starting from in the freshwater snails, where they are called as spreading hemocytes, to plasmocytes in insects, to transgenic zebrafish larva models also having macrophages, but also showing polarization phenotypes of the macrophages, which we will be discussing shortly. Okay, so macrophages, what do they really do? And the very terminology speaks for itself. Macrophages, the big eaters. And right, so and all that we will be talking about down the lane now in the next couple of minutes is about this really tiny cells, microscopic. We know that all the cells that we are going to talk about are microscopic, and this is about 21 micrometer in diameter, atypical macrophages. And it's very important to keep size and perspective when we are discussing biology, because it definitely gives a much better appreciation for all that we'll be kind of learning and discussing. So such microscopic things and super fantastically organized and super fantastic organization and the systematicness in executing the responses and the versatility, so which is like really mind-boggling. So yeah, coming back to macrophages, what do they really do? Yeah, the primary function with what the very the nomenclature says is phagocytosis, of course. So they phagocytose the foreign bodies, including the microorganisms. They are also very pro cells in mediating opsonization. Opsonization is basically an enhanced form of phagocytosis, enhanced by certain other components of the immune system, such as antibodies and complement. For instance, a complement can be an opsonin and an antibody can be an opsonin, and this the invader bound to antibody or a complement can be subsequently kind of taken up through the macrophage and can be phagocyte and can be processed in presented. So this is another function that the macrophages do: antigen processing and presentation to the cells, or to the T cells or the cells of the adaptive immune compartment. So this basically, the fragments of the antigen are kind of showcased through the antigen presenting molecule, which is the major histocompatibility complexes, to the specific T cells, and so the T cell activation happens subsequently. In addition to that, macrophages also secrete cytokines and chemokines, and all of this together kind of contribute to the immune response overall. And apart from that, macrophages are also very pro cells in inflammation, actually, and through via a couple of these properties, including phagocytosis and cytokine secretion. And they also are one of the major sources of this particular molecules called as MMPs, matrix metalloproteinases, which are required for ECM modifications, or the extracellular matrix modifications. So apart from these immune or the defense mediated workings of the macrophages, they also participate in tissue repair. Okay? So this is kind of an overall glimpse of what macrophages do. Where do they come from actually? What is the very origin of the macrophages in the body? So either embryonic or monocyte derived, as we just now mentioned. Embryonic, or basically the tissue resident macrophages are embryonic, and the monocyte derived are the ones which are basically circulation phenotypes. And the tissue resident ones largely believed to be maintaining tissue homeostasis, versus the circulation phenotypes are basically the ones that largely participate in inflammation, which in turn is triggered by tissue damage, by trauma, or by infections. Though we kind of classically call macrophages moving the monocytes in the blood when they kind of migrate to the tissues and differentiate to become macrophages. While these are the MDMs, or the typically monocyte derived macrophages, the tissue resident macrophages, though we have kind of heard about this name in different contexts, we wouldn't actually know that they are macrophages, such as, for example, the microglial cells of the brain or the central nervous system, or the osteoclasts of the bone, or the Kapha cells of the liver, are all macrophages basically. Just that they are specialized macrophages, or they, though in textbook terminology we call, okay, look, these are macrophages, they do undergo another level of specialization to be into these organs, and they also perform or have very functions that are specialized functions that are tailored to the needs of that particular organ, where they have kind of home to. Such as, for example, osteoclasts participate in bone resorption, versus Kapha cells participate in tolerogenic environment in the liver and the iron homeostasis, for instance. There are also other less known macrophage types, which are in the peripheral lymphoid organs, such as in the spleen and spleen, especially the different areas of the spleen are kind of populated by different macrophages, what we call it as red pulp macrophages versus marginal zone macrophages, which also again have very spleen specific functions. Apart from that, there are also much lesser known bone marrow macrophages, which are meant for the hematopoietic stem cell retentions. So the major differentiation between the tissue resident macrophages and the monocyte derived macrophages are becoming clear only in the very recent times, because we kind of took the tissue resident macrophages to be granted to be similar to MDMs, but we now are kind of trying to understand a lot more about their organ specific functions. For instance, like tissue resident macrophages are with the self renewable ability, and they can locally proliferate, and whereas MDMs don't really self renew, and they have to be replenished continuously. And this in turn, the tissue resident macrophages via their chemokines, they can actually recruit more MDMs to the site, and actually MDMs, depending on correct signals, they can actually become the tissue resident phenotypes, but we are kind of still trying to understand what are such cues, basically how they become or they turn into tissue resident phenotypes. Right. So with respect to the major functions, that the tissue-resident ones have maintenance of tolerogenic microenvironments in the gut and liver and the immune surveillance jobs, of course. But the MDMs, on the other hand, the major functions are inflammation, fibrosis, and antigen presentation. So apart from these, whenever the macrophages are present in the tissue resident types or the home to the tissue resident in the form of MDMs, they are one of the remarkable cell types that work in super cooperation with other cells, such as, for example, they work in cooperation with mesenchymal stem cells, or for example with antigen presenting cells in the spleen, or with pericytes and vascular smooth muscle cells in the blood vessels. Tumor-associated macrophages are gaining really important of late, and we'll definitely touch upon that in the talk. And also with the neuronal cells. So essentially, these cells are like not the ones that are working alone, but they really cooperate with other cells and carry out different functions. Okay, so if we can kind of have a zoom into the macrophage, at the very first glance, I'm sure you will be able to appreciate that the macrophage surface is really crowded, right? So if you can kind of, we have kind of represented only one molecule of each type of the receptors that the macrophage surface can harbor. But imagine a 3D of a macrophage and then thousands of these receptors sitting in there, right? So all these receptors are the ones kind of that kind of carry out major chores for the macrophage, and the major type of the receptors on the macrophage surfaces that have been worked largely upon are the pattern recognition receptors, which are basically toll-like receptors, or the C-type lectin receptors, or Rig-like receptors, or even the non-like receptors. So these are basically the ones that recognize the PAMs, or the pathogen-associated molecular patterns that are coming from the microbes, or the DAMs, or the danger-associated molecular patterns that are coming from our own cells, right? So essentially, they recognize, the PRRs recognize either the foreign patterns or our own danger patterns. And they signal downstream. So once the ligands are bound to the receptor, they induce a signaling pathway downstream, which in turn translates into a gene product, which is kind of secreted outside the cell, which essentially carries out the function that it is supposed to be carrying out, such as, for instance, cytokine secretion. Apart from these, there are also cytoplasmic pattern recognition receptors. So what we just now spoke about are the ones that are on the surface, on the exterior of the macrophage, but there are also cytoplasmic pattern recognition receptors that are gaining a lot of importance of late. So some of the TLRs are basically the cytoplasmic one, meaning they are kind of tethered to the endosomal membrane, and actually are meant for recognizing ligands that are largely cytosolic, such as, for example, the microbial nucleic acids, which are kind of shredded inside the cellular cytoplasm. And apart from that, another very interesting set of cytosolic pattern recognition receptors are this, what we call it as nod-like receptor complex, which is famously known as inflammasome complex of late. So these are the ones that are responsible for secreting major pro-inflammatory cytokines such as IL-1 beta and IL-18 and so on. So the entire thing is kind of regulated by the inflammasome complex, the secretion of the major pro-inflammatory cytokines. So apart from that, so these are the ones that form the recognition system of the innate immune responses that are carried out by the macrophages. But if we kind of zoom into it, you would be able to see how many other receptors a macrophage surface has, right? Be it cytokine receptors that bind cytokines, or FC receptors that bind antibodies, or the TREM family receptors that are recently discovered, chemokine receptors, scavenger receptors that are needed for recognizing apoptotic cells, growth factor receptors, complement receptors. There are multiples of them. What is important for us here to know is that if I could take an example of the TLRs, I mean the pattern recognition receptors, and tell you, a given microbe, for instance, comes in with a ligand for TLR. Also, the same microbe harbors another ligand for DC sign, for instance, right? So essentially, which ligand receptor complex is occupied at any given point of the time, and how many such ligand receptor complex are occupied at any given point of this time, and stoichiometrically, what does it mean to the system overall in terms of the readout, is what guides through the outcome of an immune response. Okay, so what we really would like to appreciate here is the very cooperativity of these receptors, and this is where the high throughputness of the system of the studies is appreciated, and some system levels of studies is definitely required to put together and to look at all these receptors function together, because looking at it in the isolation is really a reductionist approach for the complexity the system poses. Right. So yeah, so I think we are kind of having an appreciation for the the complexity of the very system of a single cell of a macrophage. But what makes macrophages the most fascinating cell types is their remarkable plasticity and diversity. Meaning, macrophages can basically switch forms and perform completely contrasting functions in each form. So what we call it as macrophage polarization. So this is one really super remarkable function of that, and this particular polarization is dependent on the initial stimuli that the macrophage, which we call as M0, receives, right? So basically these two major type of polarizations are basically M1 and M2 polarizations, what we call it as. And M1, the famously known as the killers, and the M2 are famously known as the healers. And basically, M1s are kind of called as classically activated macrophages and are pro-inflammatory in nature, and usually are kind of upregulated, or usually kind of their polarization is induced through LPS, for instance, which is a PAMP from the microbial surfaces, or even interferon gamma, which is another pro-inflammatory cytokine. And basically, these are called pro-inflammatory type of macrophages. On the other hand, the M2 are basically the anti-inflammatory type of macrophages, and we call them healers because they are required for wound healing and tissue repair and so on. On the other hand, M1 is kind of required for host defense from bacteria and for defense and tumor defense against tumor. So basically, the M1s are classically activated by Th1 type cytokines such as interferon gamma or PAMPs like LPS, and they produce NO and ROS. So basically, required for defense against the bacteria or the viruses. Produce pro-inflammatory cytokines, as we just now mentioned, are very good at phagocytosis and for initiation of immune responses. And basically, INOS, they kind of use INOS synthase. And that's why we kind of use INOS as a marker of an M1 almost, and very good antigen presenting cells, and they do have their own surface markers including CD80, 86 and TLR2. And apart from that, the M2 phenotypes, which are basically, we call it as healers, are largely, we call it alternatively activated macrophages, and are required for wound healing and tissue repair, largely induced via the Th2 type cytokines, which are not the anti-inflammatory in nature, IL-4 and IL-10, so on. And also kind of known to be activated in parasitic infection, understandably, because parasitic infection is an Th2 environment. And the major functions are tissue repair and wound healing. And they kind of use arginine to produce ornithine, and arginase is another marker that we use here as a for marking it to be M2, but we'll talk about it shortly. So, and largely they produce immunosuppressive cytokines, and of late they are known to be also promoting cancer and metastasis, and also participate in allergic inflammation, understandably another instance which is a Th2 major environment. Okay, so a quick summary is like some things that we already spoke about: classically activated versus the alternatively activated macrophages and the different stimulants for each. And the markers are something that is kind of important, and that is again another area of work, because we have actually not completely delineated markers that kind of distinguish the M1, M2. Earlier, we were going only by INOS and Arjunas for M1 versus M2, but now we have kind of added on additional markers, such as IL-1 for M1, and especially for M2, we have additional markers such as FIS1 and YM1 and CD206, which is a mannose receptor, and so on. Right. So basically, the primary functions are completely two different ends of the spectrum for both the type of macrophages. And adding to another level of complexity is this new M2 subtypes that are getting to be discovered of late, M2A, B, C, and D, which basically are more flavors to the M2 subtype. And again, adding up to the mind-boggling complexity the very single cell type poses. Okay, so understandably, with respect to the very important roles of macrophages with respect to innate immune system and also intersecting with the adaptive immune system, of course, it is being looked at the COVID-19 situations also. And there are a couple of interesting papers on how macrophages contribute to the pathological inflammation seen in COVID-19. This is an interesting paper that appeared in Nature Immunology Reviews. And there are also papers that basically discuss about how the macrophages can be friends or foe in the COVID-19. Friends being the initiators of immune responses and for SARS-CoV-2 inhibition, and for initiating tissue repair. But foes, on the other hand, one of the major contributors of cytokine storm, including for IL-6, which is one of the very established culprits of COVID-19, and also because of the excessive inflammation, which in turn is partly contributed by the cytokine storm, the tissue damage that kind of occurs. So basically, macrophages can definitely be a double-edged sword in COVID-19. So there is also an interesting paper that talks about this phenomena of observation of mixed M1, M2 phenotypes appearing in COVID-19 and the severity that they can basically lead to. Apparently, when the authors of this study compared the mild COVID-19 cases versus the severe COVID-19 cases, they could clearly observe that there is this mixed M1, M2 phenotypes that exhibit both types of responses, which is pro-inflammatory, and the M2, though it is wound healing, apparently that contributes to the pathological fibrosis, which in turn, intensifies the lung damage in COVID-19. So, and apart from that, the macrophages that were kind of found in the COVID-19 cases also showed very high, especially the severe cases, also showed very high expression of CD23, which is a marker, or which is basically a IgE receptor, FC receptor for IgE. So all this kind of points towards the very important roles of macrophages in COVID-19. And is it like, do we know almost deduced all the roles of macrophages? The answer is no, just like in case of any other biological system. The very view of us from the macrophages being big eaters is changing to balances, meaning, for example, there is this constant crib, in the community, immunological community, that the immunologists have long been, occupied with addressing the defense roles of macrophages and not the regulatory roles. For instance, like when we speak about tolerating gut flora, we most of the times talk about the tolerogenic dendritic cells or the regulatory T cells for that matter, but we never speak about how do macrophages really interact with them. So that is definitely one of the areas that has not been touched upon. That's something that I found interesting in the way forward research. And the very population dynamics of M1, M2 in a local microenvironment versus the systemic level is definitely not deduced. So that's again another area of serious questions. And coming back to the tumor associated macrophages, one of the very, very enigmatic cells, because depending on, though it is kind of largely postulated that the TAMs are M2 type, there is also the M1 that is seen in the vicinity many times. So basically, the way that the macrophages interact with the tumor cells is basically conditions the M1 versus M2, and that is a lot of enigma out there. And apart from that, another very interesting area which I found in one of the recent reviews is that how macrophages interact with senescent cells, because senescence happens in tissue injury, but yeah, acute senescence is good because it kind of promotes wound healing and tissue repair and regeneration, versus the chronic senescence is kind of leads to organ damage. So basically the temporal dynamics of macrophages dealing with the senescent cells is definitely not known. Right. So yeah, so coming back to the disease research, tuberculosis, the environment, which is largely driven by macrophage mediated inflammation, poses something like foamy macrophages. We know how foamy macrophages, but we actually do not know very well why foamy macrophages. And also the case is same with other chronic inflammatory diseases, including Lyme's disease and so on, where there is chronic inflammation. We really do not understand the role of macrophages, their turnover rate, and multiple things in there. So yeah, so it's definitely a lot of areas, very interesting areas to work upon. Yeah, so I'll leave you with this very quick glimpse of macrophage and inflammations. And thank you all for listening, and stay safe. Take care.
Thank you, Vani, for this excellent primary, secondary, and tertiary education on the macrophage and macrophage function. So we have also pointed out actually the avenues for future research also. Is there any questions?
Yeah, I mean, being a clinician, I was just wondering that what are the possible therapeutic intervention you can foresee with reference to manipulating the macrophage profiles? Can anyone manipulate the switch from 1 to 2, 2 to 1, up and down, backwards?
Right. Actually, repolarization is possible, basically. And therapeutic, I happen to see only a couple of papers, only with respect to TAMs, where they kind of use some chemotherapeutic agents, to reprogram M2 back to M1. So yeah. But again, it's like the moment we talk about, we are again talking about the cytokine, the network and meddling with the cytokine loop. So I think it's a lot of handle with care. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
That was a very concise and I should say very elaborate session.